Right on set.
All right, I will go ahead and call to order this regular board meeting of the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners on October 14th. It is 7:02 p.m. You have an agenda ahead in front of you. I get a motion to accept it.
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. I'll do a roll call vote to start with Ashley.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. That moves us to public comment. I'll just remind that anyone that wishing to make public comment has a 3-minute time limit, and that staff will follow up on comments in the next week if appropriate. Thank you. First, Savannah Donovan from Urbana.
Hello, thank you so much. All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
I have brought a written statement. As you know, I'm Savannah Donovan. I was the Urbana Park District Environmental Public Program Coordinator based at the Anita Purvis Nature Center from July of 2013 to May of 2021. I was then promoted to the position of Environmental Program Manager until my resignation at the end of March of this year. I'm here tonight in support of the current Nature Center staff. In my experience, working in the Recreation Department was challenging, especially as the demand for environmental programs and services has continued to increase each year since the Nature Center's reopening from COVID. Our former Environmental Program Manager could be extremely difficult to work for. She would bully staff who questioned her or the way that things were done, and the work environment was toxic at times. More than once, I and my fellow coworkers at the Nature Center took the issue to the HR manager as well as the superintendent of recreation. In December of 2024, that same former environmental program manager reached out from Ohio, her current place of residence. She texted me and, at that time, the environmental office manager, Nicole Hilberg, separately, with the same text message demanding that we send her copies of internal paperwork, specifically education program leader plans. I was on vacation for the holidays and told her that I would get back to her when I was in the office. Nicole was also at home taking a paid leave day when she received this text message. Nicole's response to our former boss was to tell her to, quote, go F herself. Our former supervisor immediately sent a screenshot of that text message to my boss, the superintendent of recreation, as well as then executive director Tim Bartlett. That former supervisor texted me separately to tell me that she wished she had gotten Nicole fired when she had the chance, and now she would be requesting her immediate termination. I soon received a phone call from my supervisor. He told me that he and the executive director were talking to the Park District's lawyer to see if they could fire Nicole for this first-time offense, which they claimed was misconduct. I then received another phone call informing me that my key staffer, the environmental office manager, Nicole Hilberg, would be immediately terminated for misconduct. As I was on holiday leave with my children, I had no opportunity to discuss my opinions or the plan of action I would have suggested to address the situation. Upon my return to work in the new year of 2025, I was directed that I must not tell anyone about why Nicole was terminated, or even that she was terminated. Rather, I was to say that she no longer works for the Park District and offer no further explanation to the staff and customers who had grown to appreciate and depend on her. The environmental team was torn up. They were suddenly terrified of the Park District leadership team, concerned about Nicole's well-being, and immediately ready to stand up to defend her once they learned what had actually happened. For me, this was the last straw in a series of battles fighting for more support for the environmental division. I submitted my resignation effective at the end of March 2025. Nicole followed Park District procedure and filed an appeal for her termination, first to the Superintendent of Recreation, then to the Executive Director, and finally to the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners. One of the Board of Commissioners was out at that time for medical reasons. Roger Diggs was a huge supporter of the Environmental Division and a big fan of Nicole's contributions, yet the board rushed to take their vote on Nicole's appeal while he was still out sick. Her appeal was denied. That appeal process took place during closed sessions with the board, which is why there is no public record of these events until now. There is also seemingly no record of the 16 or more letters of support that Nicole received from Park District customers and coworkers testifying to her value as a Park District employee of over 10 years. It is my opinion that Nicole was not actually terminated because of misconduct in her text message, but that she was terminated for being a strong-minded woman who questioned procedures and authority on a regular basis in an effort to improve the Urbana Park District for everyone. And in fact, a judge at the Illinois Department of Employment Security found that Nicole, and this is quoted from the legal findings, did not deliberately and willfully violate any rule or policy of the employer when she was rude to a former coworker who texted for a favor on the claimant's personal cell phone while the claimant was on FMLA. The former employee had nothing to do with the employer for 4 years and lived out of state. The employer's policy required the employees be courteous to coworkers, supervisors, and patrons of the employer. The former employee was none of these. Again, this was not connected to the work and was completely a personal conversation, not with a fellow employee, supervisor, or patron, end quote. Anyone concerned about freedom of speech in their personal time should take note of this incident. Losing staff such as Nicole and myself lost the Park District decades of experience and institutional knowledge, all because of a toxic and misogynistic work environment that could have been avoided under a stronger, more emotionally aware leadership. The Urbana Park District should and can do better, and I'm very hopeful that you will under the leadership of your new executive director and board of directors. Thank you.
Thank you. Olivia Webb, of Urbana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olivia Webb. I am a current employee of the Nature Center, and I have been for the past 7 years, which I am surprised to realize makes me the most senior staff member of the Nature Center at this moment. I am the only staff member left who knew Judy, who worked directly with Judy, and I can corroborate Savannah's description. There was bullying, there was harassment, there was disrespect. I saw yelling, I saw coworkers in tears. I also worked for a long time with Nicole Hulbert, and I knew her as a very multi-talented employee, and she still is, just for a different organization, who brought the Nature Center to a whole different level when Judy retired. She brought the gift shop to a place of suddenly generating profit when it did not before. She renovated the entire field museum, and she created many organizational structures that had the Nature Center running like a Ferrari. But she also was the subject of Judy's ire for a long time, and apparently that tension continued to generate hostility and chaos in this case. After Nicole left, after Nicole was fired, we lost an educational animal, a snake, who died due to medical circumstances that Nicole would have noticed, but the regular animal care staff did not. We lost the opportunity to acquire an owl. Owl programs are one of the most popular and profitable programs at the Nature Center, and Nicole had cultivated a relationship with the rehabilitator for years to acquire a new animal, and that animal had to be rejected when we were next on the list because it was in the middle of the staff turnover. There was no way we could safely care for a new animal. But really, ultimately, the reason I'm here in October talking about something that happened in January, fearing, honestly, retaliation, is because I don't know that the board realizes that there is still a hole in this relationship. The Nature Center is still going smoothly, and that is because of the tenacity of its staff. But if you peel back the layers, there is still anger, there is still betrayal there, and there is still chaos. We have been working very hard to work through it, but that hole is still there. And I see that as the result of many years of inaction. If any action had been taken in the last 10 years to repair this dysfunctional relationship between Judy and Nicole, then what's happening now would not be happening. And so the reason I'm really here is to call on the board to please take decisive action. Take it in the next month. I know Nicole was fired within 12 hours. We can act quickly. I am calling on you to reach out to these staff that work in the building of the Nature Center and listen to them. Ask them what they need. Ask them where this came from. Where did this resentment come from? Where did this lack of communication come from? Where did it start? And what you may hear are some strange things. You may hear that perhaps the relationship is not repairable. I'm almost done, I promise. You may hear some people advocate for the Nature Center being in a different department or its own department altogether, and I just want you to listen very closely for what you can do to make the Nature Center the absolute best it can be to help it to reach its full potential without having to fight through miscommunication and disrespect. Please, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now it brings to UPE new staff instructions.
So, Rich Nugent is here, he's our grounds maintenance supervisor, and he's here to introduce our new staff.
Hello, everybody. I'm here tonight to introduce Jesse Quick as our newest grounds maintenance technician. Jesse replaces Jackson Bird, who worked here for 4 years and recently retired at the beginning of September. Jesse comes to us from Bement, worked in the village of Bement on the roads and parks and things like that. I will let him shed a little bit more light on himself.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jesse Quick. I come from the village of Bement, where I was a part-time public works laborer. Basically, just did a lot of upkeep on public infrastructure, parks, ball fields, roads, and things of that nature. So being here is a very familiar territory for me. A lot less than what I was doing in Bement, just on a greater scale and more certain areas like the mowing and things of that nature. So I truly enjoy it, and I'm very, very, very excited to be a part of the team. I've been here a month, and I truly, truly enjoy it, and I am very grateful for the opportunity, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
So then, that brings us to, we received our UPDAC report, in the packet, and then that brings us to the consent agenda. Any items on the consent agenda that any commissioner wishes to discuss. If the commissioner requests an item to be discussed, it will be removed from the consent agenda, discussed and acted on under old or new business. Alright, included in this consent agenda are approval of the minutes of September 2nd, 2025 board study session, approval of the minutes of September 9th, 2025 regular board meeting, the 3 monthly reports being administration, planning and operations and recreation, approval of the monthly paid accounts payable, and actions to accept the philanthropy report and gifts listed with gratitude.
I move to approve all the action items on the consent agenda and accept all the information items listed on the consent agenda in this manner.
Second.
Move the second. Roll call vote, Sergeant Sarah.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. That brings us to reports, starting with financial reports.
Hi, everybody. Okay, we're just going to jump right in. We will begin with our fund balance reports. Here we see the report showing receipts, revenues, and expenditures for the prior 12-month period, also the budget for the current period, and the preliminary unaudited results for the 5 months that are ending, well, that ended on September 30, 2025. For those of you who are in the board packet, this report begins on page 48. Page 1, listed here as someone, trying to drag it out. Someone, this is all funds excluding our capital improvement fund, and here we see that revenues reflect $10,840,629. Big note here, we did finally receive our third real estate tax distribution late in September. $4,278,000. By now, we had, I believe, like number 5 in previous years. So they're far behind, but the end result is the same. At this point, we're sitting at just under 93% funded, which aligns with the same time last year where we were just over 93 at 93.15%. So we are on track, even though there's only been 3 distributions. Expenditures here reflect $4,327,199. This is a result of a surplus after 5 months. This is where revenues exceed expenditures, and that would be $6,513,431. Page 2 is our capital improvement funds standalone. Here we see that revenues for the first 5 months, $7,156, and expenditures of $243,322. This is a deficit where expenditures exceed our revenues of $236,166. This is status quo, this is usually the case this time of year, except when we're building a health and wellness center. Page 3, here we see all funds district-wide, noting that the ending fund balance here for the district as a whole, bottom is $15,596,713. And the remaining summary reports are the individual fund reports for our 3 main working funds, which are general, recreation, and museum, where the last page of this group of reports is the UIAC indoor pool fund. Are there any questions or comments regarding the revenue and expenditure reports? Okay. Moving on to the second set would be our treasurer reports. Here, the treasurer report is a report of the amount of cash that the district has on a single day as of 9/30/25. All 25 funds are listed down the left side of this report, where the cash is invested is displayed across the top. And here, noting in the bottom right that investments on this date total $17,249,473.22. Moving to page 2 is the top section is where we have all of our funds that are in interest-bearing accounts. So of that $17,249,000, $14,494,392.15 are in varying interest-bearing accounts. The bottom section is interfund loans, where there is no new activity during the month of September.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
We have $10.8 million in the Chase savings operation at 0.02%.
Correct, because we got our money on 9/26 or something.
Okay, that's, yeah, okay. That's what that's reflecting. So that will be, we'll look at better interest rates,
Yep.
is what yeah, great.
You got it. You got it. We're on the same page, which is page 3 at the moment. Page 3 is the last section of our treasurer's report, and this lists distributions for the month of September. Here we see vendor payments that match our accounts payable from the consent agenda. We also see our 2 payrolls divided out here by funds, and the total distribution of funds, which includes payroll and vendors, is $681,798. Any other questions on the treasurer's report? Okay.
I move to accept the treasurer's.
You got it.
For audit.
Moved and seconded. We'll do roll call vote, starting with Ashley.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. That brings to capital budget.
Yep. And this one is real nice and light again, and so we'll be able to run through this pretty quickly. Page 1 is our 2019 ARS bond fund. Here we have just a couple of expenditures as we use up the rest of our donations. $20,000 was expensed to LEGAS. This is an initial payment for the purchase of our scores table and our shot clock. And we also had $14,841 in miscellaneous FF&E as we finish up, that punch list of furnishings and equipment. Our 2025 budget, we've received up in the revenues $1,400 towards tributes and donations. And then down in the expenditures section, we had $8,030. This was expense to ERA, and this was for design work number 1 for the Busey Bridge. This was using ADA capital projects expense line. $16,850 was expense to DC Construction. This was in relation to the Phillips Rec Center ramp project, also using the ADA funds. And then we had a $675 line for the Canada Park Shed demo. I'm not sure that that's right.
It's trash.
The shed was trash. Demo trash, you use whatever language, but, yeah, so, that's all we have on that one. We have no activity in 2024, I'm not gonna elaborate on that.
I'm so sad Rich was not here to hear that one.
2023, no new activity during the month of September. 2022, we had a small expenditure, $236 for a plaque in the tributes and donations. And then the 2021 and 2020, no new activity during September. An awesome month. Over to Derek and Andy.
All right, starting with the KRT project, typically I start with CCFPD portion. So I think last meeting we talked about the bids coming in high, so that low bid is approximately 1.9 million above the available grant budget. Their intention is to go to their board later this week with a recommendation to approve that bid. And then as they move into the project, they'll seek additional funding and then may revise the scope via change order to reduce the overall contract as needed. On our side of the project, we've actually had quite a bit of work since our last board meeting. So you can see in the picture here, they're pouring the foundation for the structure itself. So that's actually where the restrooms and mechanical storage room will sit. We did get our engineering shop drawings, as you may recall, in August, and that was that 10 to 12 week time, lead time for delivery of the structure. We don't have a firm date yet for when that structure will actually get delivered still, but we're still expecting it late October, early November. When I was talking to Mid-Illinois, they have their ironworker subcontractor and that crane that they would need to erect the building itself. That crane's not available until I think they said like November 4th. So even if the pavilion arrives on the site in the next week or so, it's really just going to be sitting there until the iron workers at that point will be able to actually erect the structure, so we're looking at early November at the earliest. And then lots of utility work going on. If you drove down Main Street, you may have noticed a lane closure. That was for sanitary line connection from the new pavilion. So they've also stubbed out a lot of the electric and plumbing work you can see in that picture on the right. So on the left is looking into the pavilion. So you can see these where the posts will be of the pavilion itself, and here's kind of where that last picture was before with all the kind of utility stub outs for plumbing. And then on the right is prep for the new additional parking lots. This is one side. If you remember, the base bid had basically paving the existing parking lot, and then we had an alternate to actually extend that parking lot even further, which we ultimately did select to do. So this is preparing to pour half of the parking lot, and then they came back to pour the other half. So here's a couple pictures. So shortly after pouring, this would be the east side of the parking lot. And so this is me basically standing on the existing concrete accessible parking area that we had that was not part of our demo plan for this project. So I'm basically just standing and looking south across the entire new parking lot there, which is very exciting. And so bringing back some old pictures that some of you may recall from updates months ago. This was a smaller capital project that we had in the works that related to a priority painting list that a previous facility maintenance supervisor had kind of had us work through and get estimates, and as part of our capital budgeting process last year, we wanted to start hitting some of those projects. So this is the Ambucks restroom building. These are pictures when we were initially getting pricing last winter. And working with the contractor, it's a pre-qualified provider that we have. We're waiting on a couple things. One, they get very busy in the summer. They do a lot of dorm painting, I guess, at U of I all summer, so which actually works in our favor because we also wanted a lot of our programs to move out of the site as well. So September was a great month for us to do this work, and the weather was ideal. So here's a couple pictures of the after. And it also included inside the restrooms, which I had a couple compliments of the work in the restroom inclusion from our facilities maintenance staff to make sure we actually painted that as well, not just the exterior of the building.
This is Romine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Romine's one of our minority-owned contractors. We develop relationships through our process. They've grown substantially. They're now doing a lot of commercial work. In fact, I don't think they're doing residential work at all anymore. So it's a real success story, a part of our involvement with them.
And before we worked to get them into our program, we were struggling with painting contractors and having somebody that we could kind of count on just to get estimates or to respond and follow through on the projects. And I mean, that's probably the biggest success of the program recently that we've had is that contractor specifically. Okay, so Laura mentioned in the capital budget update a payment to ERA, so we've gone through quite a bit of preliminary design work for the bridge, UC Woods. So this is part of their early drawing with elevations. The new structure is going to be very similar to the two bridges that we recently completed at Crystal Lake Park, although we will not have a very large sanitary line underneath one of the bridges as we do at the lake currently. We did also work with ERA to have kind of a preliminary review meeting with the drainage district. There's not a lot of big concerns at the moment. The existing bridge is basically right at the 100-year flood stage. And that's something that's been important with the drainage district and working in previous projects. They would like the bridge to be at or above that level. So we're basically there right now. We may raise it a few inches, up to 6 inches or so. We just want to make sure it's not going to affect anything with accessibility on either side of the bridge with the path work that goes in the concrete path in the Nature Center. And then also we have the wood boardwalk at UC Woods, so we kind of want to make sure everything lines up well. But we're still looking basically in the same exact location, replacing the new bridge. And the schedule's still looking very similar as we've been projecting out over the course of the last year. We're probably going to have this out to bid, I would say, in early 26. Probably would have a board recommendation late winter or early spring of 26. And if you recall, there's a very long lead time with the bridge. So this is probably going to be, a thing that's very similar to the KRT project where we have a board recommendation and award of a contract, but we may be sitting and waiting for a while until the bridge gets fabricated. So there'll be engineered shop drawings that need to get developed and approved. It'll be very similar to how the pavilion project's been going. But I just want to get this back on everybody's radar because it's going to be coming pretty quick.
So will there be a period of time, I'm assuming, where the woods aren't accessible?
Yeah.
And will the current bridge be demoed like well in advance, or will you wait till the new bridge is fabricated?
So that's not fully determined at this point, but we're going to be saying we would like it demoed right before you're ready to move it so we can maintain access as long as possible. But there's probably going to be some work that needs to be done to get the contractor access, which is kind of something we've been looking at recently at the site with the engineer as well. The best way we can get a crane, where the crane's going to sit, how we're going to get concrete moving there. And a lot of those things, we can dictate a lot of stuff in the bid documents and what ends up being our contract documents, but there is some means and methods that you kind of have to let contractors determine.
Do you have are we talking like a month, 2 months, any guess or no? Of no bridge?
I don't have a good
Okay.
guess now. I would say it's probably going to be, I'm just thinking with Crystal Lake.
Yeah.
I bet we're looking at 2 months probably at minimum.
Is there any way to have like at the south end of the creek there where it connects to Crystal Lake? Is there a way to do like a temporary trail in sort of in the north end of Crystal Lake?
There is a gate there that we could work with the fairgrounds to open. I think their biggest concern would be during actual fair season, but we have a good relationship with them. We could approach them about that.
It's a challenge for sure, because I mean.
Because the only other option
this
is parking, is not, there's no parking for the, yeah, but what is by the, what used to be the factory.
I believe Chief Day just asked us for a favor, so maybe we could provide with them. There we are. Ask them to look at it.
Right.
We'll keep looking at options, but it's going to be a challenge for sure, yeah.
But it will no longer swing, right?
I want requested a swinging bridge.
Planks, baby.
No, it'll be very similar to the other bridges. It's going to have the same look, same kind of portent steel look and everything. Okay, that's it. Unless there's any questions.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Adventure, right?
Yeah.
Like a nice slow.
I'll just mention that tomorrow there's a pre-construction meeting for the ITEP Trail, Baker's Lane, and you'll be attending it. I expect that one to move pretty quickly. They're locally contractor based their work upon slip form concrete method, which is a very quick method of paving. And they're going to start doing tree removal later this month. They're going to start from the north and south ends and then move forward. And we'll get more details tomorrow when they attend the meeting.
Do we have signs out about the tree removal?
We will, yeah. Good call.
I mean, I just-
Yeah. I mean, at this point,
It might be-
hopefully the neighbors are all aware,
Okay.
they flyered in.
Okay, you thought, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If we don't have time, that's fine, but as long as the neighbors are aware, I feel like, because we're not doing the tree removal.
That's right. Yeah.
But we will get.
We're partners in the project.
Right, but we will get the
Yeah.
phone calls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would ask the city to put out their signs. so-
There you go, yeah, like that even better.
Yeah, there's a little one.
Great.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Public notice
Yeah.
in the city. I'm serious.
No, I mean, I think it's helped when we've done construction in Meadowbrook, you know, and we're renovating spaces, it helps people understand what's happening.
Absolutely.
Yep, for sure.
Laura, you're going to tell us about the 2025 annual bill bond sale planning packet?
Yep. We as a, group have, anybody listening, this is page 65 of the board packet. We have had conversation about this planning packet in both our finance study group as well as our board study session. This may be rehashed, but I'm going to walk through the pages and highlight the important elements for anybody who might listen or refer back to our recording. Listed here, keynote, page 3, noting that identifying who the players are for our bond rollover, and Chapman & Cutler is our bond counsel and Spear Financial is our municipal advisor. And our timetable that we will have this year, 2025, is what's called a biennial year. And so there will be a newspaper publication on November 4th, and then a public hearing on November 11th. Our competitive sale is currently scheduled with Spear for December 4th. The board will adopt the ordinance on the 9th at our regular board meeting, and closing on our bond rollover sale will be on 12/18/2025. Listed on page 4 here, as I mentioned just a moment ago, 2025 is a biennial year, biennial referring to Bond Issue Notification Act, and this is essentially a public hearing concerning the district's intent to sell general obligation GO bonds prior to adopting a bond ordinance, and this remains in effect for 3 years. So we did this last in 2022. We have publishing requirements, not less than 7 days, not more than 30 days before the public hearing. The notice of the public hearing must be posted at our principal office at least 2 days before the public hearing, and the board is required to wait 7 days following the biennial hearing before adopting the bond ordinance. So there's a lot of test rules during, between the October and November board meetings where things have to happen within certain windows of time. Moving on to page 6, this is talking specifically about our debt capacity, both non-referendum and total debt capacity. Non-referendum debt capacity being 575% of our EAB, and then total debt capacity 2.875. So I leave these wonderful compliance in the able hands of Chapman and Cutler and Spear Financial to make sure that we stay within all of our boundaries there. And so noting on this page our Series 2025 bond, our intended principal of $993,770. The next page refers to our DSEB, or debt service extension base. This is an annual limitation placed on us by PTEL, and it caps the amount of non-referendum bond debt service that a taxing district can levy in a particular year, in each year. And the annual increase is limited by CPI. And being a PTEL county, we're capped at 5%. So this page is showing previous years, the bottom line is showing what our current one is. And CPI for this coming year is 2.9%. Moving on to a couple pages later, but then page numbers on, 7, 8, 9, page 9. This is our preliminary debt service schedule. And here again, it's reflecting that our principal becomes live or active on 12/18 of 2025, $993,770. At the point of Spear creating this planning packet for the Park District, they were looking at a coupon or an interest rate of 4%. That gives us an interest burden of $39,419.54. Therefore, our total principal and interest, or DSEB, is the $1,033,189, which we saw on the previous schedule pages. The following page is showing what our costs for these issuances run the Park District in a year. And so Spear Financial will be receiving $7,200 for their services, and Chapman and Cutler will be receiving $6,700 for their services, for a total of $13,900. And the final two pages are basically showing what last year's Series 2024 GO bonds were, and the very last page is reflective of our ongoing ARS alternate revenue source bond schedule. And that is the fund we'll have in December. Are there any questions on this? I know we've been through it a few times, but any further questions, I'm happy to answer. All right.
Thank you.
So just briefly, the new volunteer report you all received, I just want to highlight the training that occurred. The leadership has been very diligent in doing research around different trainings that the staff have requested, and we have several lined up over the next couple of months. The first two specifically related to working with homeless in our parks and approaching them with empathy and how to best serve them and connect them with resources. And then, another being what is it called? Healing the helper? Healing the helper. Yeah, and so how are we caring for ourselves as we continue to serve others? But there's through my one-on-one conversations, there comes through a discovery of staff wanting more training, and this being a touch point or a demand. So, and kudos to the leadership for pulling these trainings together. I think it was pretty well received. For that first one, it was with See You at Home.
That's right, yeah.
And they were both from See You at Home?
They were, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they were sort of presenting some of the stereotypes and misassumptions that surround the housing. I think it's very helpful for our staff to begin to see the house in a different light. talked a lot about some of the resources that are available. One of the things that came out of that is that we're going to create basically a business card that highlights all the different resources that are available that we can distribute to our staff and also back to see what Hunks was on their wish list. So we're kind of helping to support them as well.
So which staff went through that training?
All planning operations staff and then some recreation administrative staff as well.
And it was reported so that, because I unfortunately I'm on the same day as Circle, which is a training opportunity put on by, it's our Central Illinois Recreation Group essentially. So it was reported for those who couldn't attend, they could watch it. Yeah. It's really well done. Health and wellness, our 1-year anniversary is coming up, and so why not throw a party, because everybody likes cupcakes. So, Jamil has pulled together a grouping of staff to help us plan the party, and mark your calendars for January 3rd from 2 to 5. That will be a celebration. I hope you all can attend. We've been slowly spreading the word. There will be an official save the date that goes out in the next month, but we've got a big marketing plan that is underway. Staff are doing a great job of coming up with unique ideas to really engage the community and send them away with reminders of everything that's going on, not only at Health and Wellness, but some of the great events happening in the Urbana Park District. So I think it'll be a great party. I'm really excited about it. I love any reason to have a popcorn bar.
Yeah.
Yes, that's better than drink. Come up with. So, but yeah, kudos to the staff. They've come up with this idea in a short amount of time. I just think it's going to be really well executed. And hopefully it serves multiple purposes, right? There are still people out there that don't know Health and Wellness is open. And so we hope this is an encouragement to those who have supported us this first year and renewing their membership and just celebrating with us what they helped us accomplish, but also getting the word out to potentially new members. Just letting people know that this is something that could serve them as well. So again, mark your calendars and invite everybody you know, please. Andy stole my Rail Trail update, so I will cross that one off, unless you guys have questions. And I won't steal Mary's thunder for the foundation meeting, so I'll just continue. iParks renewal is coming up. We'll talk about it more at the next board meeting, but I believe you all are aware, but wanted to reiterate that iParks went through a change recently. We're moving everybody to the same renewal date. So we're going to have a very odd statement coming before us. It's a 3-month coverage to get us to January 1 of the next year. And then we will renew for a full term. So this is something that a lot of insurance or claims-based agencies and pools are going to. And so to align with our APEEP, which is the larger pool that iParks belongs to, we are going to use that same anniversary date. I'm sorry, when I say we, I am on the board, so it's kind of hard to differentiate, but there you go. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk to you about it, but that is why you will see when typically our bill is over 200,000, that's why you will see a $137,216 next month. Yep. So, and then last but certainly not least, I mentioned this to everybody here, but just to bring up the discussion of our board meeting times. So we have staff who attend these and are very faithful in doing so. It is very hard for me to watch our staff spend a 14-hour day at work. And I would love for us to consider potentially moving that time, our board meeting time to an early time, just to help create a sense of balance and alleviate a little bit of a long day for them. So, and for all of you as well, but open to thoughts. I did actually, I did speak with Lori Hastings as well, and she said yes with several explanation points. But she wanted me to share that she's in support of the move. Should it's be reasonable, the board is in favor.
I'm also working like a 1,000,000-hour day, on these days too, so.
Yeah, it's cool.
Maybe the question is how much earlier? Like we've done 6,
6.
5?
No, 6 is what I was thinking of starting with. I think I might cause an undue burden for one of our commissioners, so 6 would be great. for our board meetings and our study sessions. And I think we need to come up with posters to about that as well, to see if there anything for second of them. If it works for everybody and it doesn't cause you all undue burden, I think the staff would really appreciate it.
When would we make that change? Like, how soon can we make that change?
You guys are the bosses, so.
You have to post it just to.
No, we would just put up a new schedule, is
Okay.
essentially what that would be,
Yeah, we have
to reflect.
Because we post an annual schedule.
Correct.
Yeah, but we just put up a new one.
Yep.
and- Okay.
Yep, or make note on the current one, board Google, time, change of time, change of time, I said that right. It sounded wrong, but I was right.
My proposal was going to be for the December UPD board meeting, the board meeting, because I assume they would also appreciate an earlier time. But if you guys want to implement it sooner, Cedric will also be bringing up maybe a potential change during his report for November, so we can always do earlier if that's what the board wishes.
I don't feel changing.
Next month.
Yeah.
In fact, I would prefer the study session in November be earlier, because I have to leave at like 6 in the morning. They're going to field trip to Chicago.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Is this something that has to be officially voted on, or we just do it?
No, as long as we make notice, for the
Yeah,
48-hour
notice.
OMA rules, that's fine. And we'll just vote on the entire schedule, at the new, in May when we do it. But yeah.
6 o'clock,
Yeah, so-
both meetings. All right.
Starting with the November board study session. Okay. Thank you all very much. I know the staff are giving their comment, but they're smiling. So they were trying to keep a straight face.
Before, I'm in support of that. I think any earlier than that would be very difficult for me, especially when our meetings overlap with some meetings I have a little bit. So, we probably run out, so hopefully I can make it here at 6, but I'm in support of this change, but it'll be tight for me, so.
Keep that.
Awesome.
Is that everything for you?
That's all. Do you guys have additional questions?
I have one quick back to rail trail. I know there had been some discussion on like the pedestrian cross in St. Joe. Has there been any updates on that, those discussions with the north-south rail? Isn't that like a concern?
Not that I've heard.
No.
I'm not familiar with the St. Joe portion, yeah.
Like where it crosses like,
Glover Bridge, probably.
it crosses over like the north-south railroad track, which I think is like, what is it?
Oh, the Union Pacific.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, so they're still trying to negotiate that. They've got a consultant, specifically a railroad, expert that's helping with those negotiations. It's not final yet. They did pull the actual crossing itself from the bid via addenda during the process because they weren't there yet. And so my understanding is that they would have to have the Pacific approve the engineering drawings and the CCFPD would pay for them. That actual crossing is about $250,000 as part of that overall 1.9 gap that Andy identified.
Okay. I'm just curious. I know that was been discussed before. Haven't heard anything.
On the Norfolk Southern side, we're still pushing hard to get some answers, getting help from a lot of our legislators. Did hear from Aetha, who's chief of staff for Senator Bracci, that she spoke with one of the folks that we've been talking with, and he said that they're moving through this internal process right now. Very general. We're continuing to push hard on that.
I'm going to go ahead and do the president's report, which is almost just talking about our upcoming meetings. Our November 4th study session, I guess, is still to be determined. But then our November 11th regular board meeting has a lot of things. We have public hearing for truth and taxation, action to approve tax levy for the coming fiscal year, approve annual capital project budget and any CIP revisions, review board annual actions for the next fiscal year, appoint a board representative to the IAPD annual meeting, and the finite hearing for annual bond sales. So, jam-packed.
That is Veterans Day.
Right, so that was the
That's
other
a
thing
holiday
that
we
we wanted
just
to talk about. Yes. So, what do we do?
Well, it seems like we should move our board meeting, since it's a holiday for you all. I am traveling, so I could not do the Monday. Oh no, I could, sorry. I'm coming back on Sunday. I don't know what days you're looking at.
Well, Derek is gone on Monday, so it would be Wednesday. But if Monday works best for everybody, then Derek, you're just not ready. We'll have Andy come.
Heartbroken, I'm sure.
I'll be here.
Okay.
I can do Wednesday.
We're talking about the 12th.
Yeah.
November 12th.
Do we need to adjust the time to make it work?
It'll be 6 p.m.
It'll be 6 p.m. So.
Well, if that helps.
No, I just have to, I'll just have to. Not what's in there, so that's fine. It wasn't gonna be that busy.
Thank you for that adjustment as well.
That means the stuff has to change, the schedule and stuff.
Pardon?
All this, all the bond stuff and everything, it says the 11th, because all that stuff has to change too.
No, these are, the holiday doesn't have any impact on that, and being one day different is fine. We're staying within all of our compliance measures or testing rules. So, yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
So that will make that our next, the next board meeting will be November 12th.
And I will let Laura Hastings know.
Awesome. All right. That's all I had. And then that brings us to our regular liaison reports. Finance Study Group last met on September 22nd. We plan to meet on this Thursday.
Jam-packed agenda.
Jam-packed.
Good. All right. Policy.
Policy Study Group, we last met on September 9th. We made some additional changes to the, or suggested some additional changes to the ADA policy, which we're going to discuss later tonight. And our next meeting is November 17th.
November 17th.
Thank you for filling that in.
I'm sorry. It was not September 9th, I'm sorry, our last meeting was September 22nd, but our next meeting is November 7th.
Foundation.
And so the foundation met yesterday, which makes it easy to report. And so I think I think what's exciting is that they approved the lease with the solar contract for the future Del Coleman Park siteland. For some context, cash rent for farmland is about $300 maybe, and that lease is for $3,000 an acre. So it's like over the 20-year course of the lease, I think it's like 1.2-ish million. Right? So that we'll earn. They're going to invest some of that initially. Idea is to hold that for the development of Del Coleman Park, but also reinvest about $150,000. Right, as well back into youth scholarships pretty quickly. So they want to see direct impact into the community. So that's exciting that is moving forward. And as a reminder, there's already solar fields adjacent, which is why they decided to move in this direction. And thank you, Derek, for all your work on it.
There still is a chance it could
Right.
happen.
Yeah.
We're in the queue now.
So.
Wasn't there some discussion that little Amarin station in Arlen's are like could handle like another solar field?
That was the concern of the developer to the north. And they offered to investigate it if we paid them to do so. We did because of the investment of our money. This new developer has more optimism, but we'll find out when the options are good.
And they'll continue to farm it in the meantime until it's turned into, so it's still earning income that goes to the foundation. The other thing is that, and related to the Kickapoo Rail Trail, I attended the meeting with everybody here in relationship to that. And at the foundation yesterday, the district asked, so Vermilion County Conservation District committed $50,000 to this $1.9 million gap. And they sort of are asking others, and so the Urbana Parks Foundation was asked if they could think about contributing $50,000. I think somebody was at 75, I don't remember.
The Champaign County Friends.
Okay. Yeah, Friends of the KRT.
It's the foundation group for the forest preserve.
Okay, the Forest Preserve.
Yeah, they were all present, so it's.
Yeah, there's a lot of agencies and groups involved, which is exciting. And so hopefully our foundation will be able to do so. And then I think I shared some of our thoughts from the study session about priorities. The big ask was about Prairie Weaver Phase 2, and not necessarily a dollar amount, but helping the foundation for Hawk, which you might remember. Maybe not. Sorry. Did Roger would have hired a consultant to help sort of think about how we fundraise for a gift that large. So that's what, yeah, okay. Yeah. Were you part of that? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, it wasn't. So we sort of planted that seed, that process maybe need to be done again. And so nobody said no. So I think that's, those are the highlights from that meeting, and then we'll have our joint meeting in December at our study session with the foundation.
And then updeck planning study group.
We've kind of hammered out our agendas for the next few months when we can. We had a kind of social in the last one, dinner.
All right. That brings us to old business. Seeing there is none, that brings us to new business, which is the action on resolution 2025-09, determining the amount to be raised by taxation.
Yep. So anybody following along, this is page 83 in our board packet, and what we've provided is presented for the board to use in the discussion. Today is a table, we call it a table, but it's what's labeled as worksheet. And this is in relation to our 25 tax levy, and the final calculation for our 25 levy, which will be collected in 2026, won't be available from the county clerk until April of 2026. And so the final calculation uses a final EAV after the board review makes its adjustments, township, county multiplier, other factors, all these, moving parts for us to create an ask, for our levy. It also allows for a margin of fluctuation from the EAV based on like the $100,000 letters that we get people who are, appealing, their representative, they win or lose, how that affects our tax rolls and things like that. So these are all the things that we have to think about when we're trying to determine our levy requests. So on the back of the memo, this is presented to you all, the board, annually, and this is at a glance of what we asked for, i.e. our black box, compared to what we actually received, and the tax rates. And I think that kind of the key thing I wanted to highlight in this little graph chart or table is that the actual dollars increase there towards the middle for the last few years have been quite high when you look at them in relation to previous years. And I just want to point out that that's largely due to the changing CPI, which is that last column. And I've mentioned previously, but CPI, because we're a P-TEL county, we're capped at 5%. And so those 2 years where you see we're at 5%, the actual CPI was like 7%, 6.5%. And so we kind of lost out on that because we're a P-TEL and we can only go up to 5%. But the result was still, good dollars, for the district. So those are just the kind of things I wanted to show you there. And then knowing that our change in CPI that we're looking to, this upcoming levy season is 2.9. So, our numbers aren't going to be quite as large as what you've seen in our actuals in the last few years. It's a direct correlation to that CPI. So, on the worksheet, it's really the back side of it that gives us, at a glance again, the options that we talked about. We talked about the levy, again, also in our finance study group and as well as our board study session. So I think we all are aware collectively as a group what we're kind of looking at here. This is essentially whatever the board approves tonight for our tax levy. This is what will appear in the black box, i.e. in the News Gazette. So
the 25% and the number is what will appear.
This whole thing.
Oh, sorry,
that
that whole
box?
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
So what we're seeing here on this chart is the three options that we spoke about in the previous meetings, where we're looking at a 20%, a 22.5%, or a 25%, and the top graph is showing us what the total corporate and special purpose property taxes we're asking to levy, what that totals out to, and gives us the percentage. And then the bottom chart is the total ask. So it's all of the things plus bond is what that bottom line is. So yeah, and again, just as a reminder, I believe that we were comfortable with that 22.5 is where we were talking about. But the other three pages are literally what the black box will look like with each of the options. So it's just a different view of the same consolidated sheet. So I'm not sure how much more we want to talk about those three options again, but yeah.
Can you remind me again, I know it's very complicated, but the 26% of that, it's percent over what the last year is? Because when I look at these, like...
Yeah, it's a percent increase over previous year, but previous year was 26.85 or something like that. So it's over is probably not quite the right vernacular, because the difference is only going to be
right, because I mean last year it was like
yeah.
2023 was 26%, but
exactly.
The actual was like a drop in the actual tax rate. Yeah. So it's 26% higher than total dollars requested, or actual extension of dollars collected.
Percent increase in dollars requested over the prior year's actual collected.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. We actually got closer to 9 or something.
Beg your pardon?
We actually got closer to 10 or something, or $11 million. But
last year,
Oh, it was 10.
Yeah. So this request is 20%, 26% more than the actual we got. It's not a 26% increase in tax.
Correct. But always confuses people, right?
Yep.
And with the lower CPI, it's going to be less of a pool of money to.
Who sets the CPI? Where does that come from?
Who sets it? I don't know that.
It's it's federal.
The other upper government agency.
Yeah. Somebody at the federal.
Not us, they didn't ask us, no.
Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
There you go, BLS.
Google.
Nice. Well, CPI is based on so many things that, it's hard to say who derives it. So many things that affect it. You're right. So.
Cool. I move to approve resolution 2025-09, determining the amounts estimated to be necessary for the 2025 levy payable in 2026 upon taxable property to be $12,727,200. Oh my gosh. Let me do that again. $12,727,288. Ish. Sure.
Second.
All right, let's move to second. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Sarah.
Aye.
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 And that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, that brings us to review the preliminary 2026 capital improvement.
Okay, so our internal capital team is going through our annual process for the capital budget. We've talked a little bit about it. So this month we'll have the draft 2026. There's no action for the board. It's just, I'm going to go down basically the line items, give you information, background information on it, what's included in the budget. Next month, we should have then, if there's any changes, I'll let you know what those changes are, but then we'll have the budget come back to you all for formal approval. And then typically at that time, I take in the November my capital budget report, and I go through our 5-year capital plan. So our internal team, while we're updating our prioritized list, update the 2026 capital budget, we also do a 5-year plan. So next month we'll have the 26 budget for approval, and then I'll walk through where we're at with the 4 other years. So if you want to look at the overall capital budget, I'll start in the revenue section. And we have anticipated bond sales of $970,000. These are all kind of regularly occurring budget lines. Tributes and donations, we anticipate $12,000 in activity. And then ADA projects, we do $65,000 every year. And then those are then reflected in the expenditure section, where you'll see the ADA $65,000, tributes and donation expenditures of $12,000, and then cost of issue, and that's related to the bond sale itself. And then, so vehicles and equipment is a regularly appearing line. As I typically say each year, we try to aim for $150,000 to $225,000 each year out of our capital program, and that's so that we stay on top of all the replacements of the vehicles and equipment, and we don't run into a backlog where any one capital year may be adversely impacted by an overload of trucks or whatever that year. So for 2026, we're budgeting $225,000, and that includes 2 3/4 ton trucks. So that's used by our facilities maintenance staff. Those have the service bodies on the back for tool storage. Then we have 1 1/2 ton, a gator for the grounds department. We have 3 gators in total, 1 for the grounds, 1 for the facilities, and 1 for athletic fields. So this year has a replacement for the grounds department's gator. And then we have 2 new pieces of equipment. One is a mini track loader, and that's something staff's been looking at for a number of years. And as we kind of grow in the ability to do some projects in-house, particularly with paving projects, this is something that would really help our staff be more efficient in doing so.
The claw cat.
Even smaller.
Yeah.
This is the one where they're standing. You've probably seen it. It's called a dingo, I guess. And then we also are budgeting for a golf cart, which would be primarily used, pretty much exclusively used by the recreation department. So, Corky, I don't know if you wanted to touch a little bit on that.
As we look through our ADA audit for programs, we're looking, we use them for some of our big programs. We rent a golf cart. We're thinking of having these at almost all of our special events, so somebody can't get to a neighborhood night up in the lawn, then we can pick them up and get them in.
We don't own the golf cart that we use for jazz.
Mhm.
We rent it.
We rent it.
We've had a number of events each year that we've been renting more and more. So
How much are they to rent every time too?
I think it's $250 a day, $300 a day, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like $350.
Yeah.
How much does the golf cart cost you?
So this way we can use,
No, I
we
think
can
it's great.
have it for more events and be more accessible.
we can brand it.
And
You know what I mean?
yeah, too, yes.
With our new logo.
It's comment, yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be a large capacity too, right?
Yeah, it's a six person.
Take the governor out, so it goes like 50 miles an hour.
All right, so moving down our expenditures, we're at hazard tree projects. This back years ago was called the Emerald Ash Borer hazard tree. Now we just kind of directed it to hazard tree projects where our staff may not be able to handle something. We have capital line each year. It's almost always $10,000. I think last year we actually increased it knowing there were some other projects on the horizon, but now we'll bring it back down to its normal amount.
It's good to see it in a normal amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, which means hopefully we're done with Emerald Ash Board for the moment. I'm sure there's something next, but.
Taking care of oaks.
So then construction crew, so it's more of those in-house type capital related budget items that we can do. That's $10,000. Technology we've increased for 2026. Typically we budget about $20,000 each year. We're increasing it for BSNA Cloud up to $50,000. Laura, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yes, I do. Yeah, right now BSNA is our accounting software. It houses our payroll, our general ledger, and purchase order. Purchase order being used as a method of an approval process for paying an invoice, essentially. And right now it's called a .NET. It's a client-based software, which has a lot of struggles with it regarding remoting in, trying to access it, off-site when you're not directly on your home computer. And it's just a little bit antiquated. There's a couple, hindrances as far as
You don't get updates on a regular basis?
well, we get updates twice a month, but I pay for a service to make that happen, and so that would go away as well. It's not painfully expensive, but it's a few $1,000s that, can be redirected to a better product. And, the cloud, it's going to offer us some AI capabilities. It's going to offer us a vast reporting capability compared to the limited abilities that we have. The reporting is kind of canned. You can do some custom things, but it's really a bit rigid, and so we'll have a lot better opportunities for pulling down reports and in a much better way. There's just so much room to grow as far as reporting. But all that having been said, the goal is, for the park district to become, independent for IT services, and we have two obstacles before we can make that happen. And one of them is getting our accounting software cloud-based, and then the other is getting Microsoft 365 cloud-based. With bringing on Microsoft 365 in the next fiscal year, because it's a number bigger than this, it makes us fully independent, and for us to review other opportunities for the district as far as IT services. So that's the plan, but we're going to start with ESNA Cloud, and my life in the evenings and the weekends will be so much better when I have to
As somebody who was on a we were on a university system that was the last holdout, where 99% of the clients were on the web-based. It's a disaster, and you'll be so excited when it happens, because we were too. Because updates pushed on a more regular basis, and things didn't break as much.
Right.
So.
And it's just more robust. I mean, the easy to get you in a cloud versus the restrictions of a .NET.
And having to remote desktop in is crazy in
It's
today's day. I mean, unless it's sometimes you still have to do it, but.
Yeah, and MS 365 is what will get us access to our servers, essentially. So, our drives. So.
Right now, IT is type of the city?
It is. It is.
I would say beyond just the increase in efficiency and user friendliness, Laura has a vision of making our reports a lot more user-friendly and transparent for the public. Right now we are overwhelming. And so being able to create a report that is more readable for the day-to-day person who doesn't speak numbers like Laura does, I think is a great goal. And I think this is great that we're going to get to that point.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to the recreation and operations small equipment line. Each year we pretty much put $5,000 in each one of those lines. They can handle some larger purchases of equipment, either for the recreation department or P&O. What's good with having that in capital is if we have multiple years that we're holding on to, you can see where we're basically creating a savings account. $10,000, $15,000 potentially to do larger pieces of equipment to help out. Mechanical replacement, it's $10,000 each year. It's very similar. We're trying to build some funds up if we have any sort of mechanical failure at any of our facilities. We have capital funds that we can pull from immediately to utilize. We also will hold that for a few years. When Laura and I review capital budget revisions, this is some of the things that you'll see on the revisions when if 2021 still has $10,000 in mechanical, but we've built up, $20,000, $30,000 over the course of the next few years in capital, we'll start releasing that down to contingency where we can apply it to other priorities in the district. But it's just something that we can kind of hold on to if needed. Trails projects is basically set at $40,000 each year, and then we can either target that to a specific project or priority for that capital year, or if there's any small sort of hardscape or trail project, we can do that. Typically, we tie it in with what is like the big project at that capital year. So this capital year, 2026, there's 2 playgrounds for replacement, Sunnycrest and Victory. So that is earmarked for trails projects and our regularly occurring hardscapes and fencing, which is $150,000. So our plan is to use both of those with one of the upcoming lines just for the playgrounds for Sunnycrest and Victory. But hardscapes, we are still working through a priority list of projects that were evaluated with paths and parking lots. We may have a small parking lot project that would get included with this. I'm working on getting a budget estimate. It's for the parking lot out here at Chief Schumacher. If that's something that's reasonably priced that we may be able to tackle next year, next meeting I may say that that's going to be included within that earmark of hardscapes and fencing. Flat improvements, the outdoor pool, this used to be the UIC capital until the most recent agreement, so that $20,000, we've just now kept it in aquatics and just noted it for the outdoor. And then $200,000 for our main objectives for 2026, which is the playground replacements for Sunnycrest and Victory. $75,000 for EV fleet charging. So this was brought up at the last board meeting when we were doing approvals for fleet purchasing, and had a little discussion on what it would look like to get our fleet electric. So we did a little more research, worked with an electrician here locally to get us just some budgetary estimates of what it would look like. The $55,000 to $60,000 was a budget estimate that I had received from Davis Electric. That's for 6 chargers. So, and each charger would be able to have 2 ports, so that would be 12 vehicles. So in the vehicle barn, that basically would be 1/2 of the vehicle barn, which works very well because 1/2 of the barn on the south side is basically our passenger and light duty vehicles. So this would basically get us set up for all 12 of those spots. He did note when we were doing the estimate before we got too far down the road, he was getting a little concerned on what our existing panel would be able to do for us for this kind of charging. So there may be some more costs. That's why we're kind of bumping it up a little bit just in case that scenario does happen. If it's something the board wants us to keep pursuing for next capital year, it would be a good time to let us know, because next month it would be appearing again, probably at $75,000. And then at that point, I'm going to go back and work with Davis Electric. They want to do some metering and some testing of our existing panel just to see where we're at before we get any further down.
How difficult? So it would be, the idea would be replacing, so you said passenger and...
To phase them in.
But yeah.
So we would just kind of go through our regular schedule, however that may play out. And whenever, so 2027 has 2 F-150s that we'd be replacing. So, and the rec van and a hybrid wagon.
Okay.
So there is budget implications if we go to those vehicles.
So you can buy a hybrid electric plug-in minivan, for example. right? Which it seems like it would be a great investment because the range is like 30 miles on a charge, and that's being driven around. But the trucks are the ones that I'm curious is if we feel like the current truck can do the same work. I don't know, like, do they, just what's out there exist? I'm also interested, which Laura, don't shoot me, but I don't know if there's a way to look at our fuel expenses easily.
I mean,
In general?
I know what our expenditures are
Fuel?
for it.
Okay.
Not off the top of my
No,
head.
I think for me, those types of, like, I would like to see some like data-driven decisions too, to sort of help me think through it. I'm not against it, but I think in terms of the timing, right? And I'm just concerned about incentives and in the next, and lack of technology development in the next 3 years. So wondering, right, so just thinking about so not saying that, now might be the time to put in the infrastructure, but I guess I would like to also understand, like, thinking about it's really easy when I can tell you that we go from $300 to $3,000 on a farm lease, right, to see that, and so I think it would just be helpful to know what we're spending on fuel. Maybe those vehicles, like on, I don't know if you can, like, estimate, right?
I mean, what I know is how often we fill, right?
Yeah.
Track each
With-
vehicle.
You track each vehicle?
And we don't have to do all,
Right, no.
you know what I mean? We
But I
could
think it
just
would
say,
be-
let's target the more passenger vehicles and
Yeah.
other trucks, and let's do, and I'm just making this up, 3 stations in the barn to start, and then kind of wrap the, rec van, hybrid wagon. 28 has a Prius and another custodial van, and so we could kind of get those in, because what makes me a little
'Cause we still pay.
nervous too is, if vehicles cost more when you go that route too. So, like, for example, an F-150, the base cost when we're going through the state bid, and this is without all the options that we add, is like $38,000. When I work through the state bid for the F-150 Lightning, so I'm trying to just be apples to apples on that, it can be $50,000 to $55,000. And that's not including all the options, but a lot of those options are gonna kind of wash out evenly. Like a lift gate, we're gonna get a lift gate for both of them, kind of stuff. So it could be $15,000 or so more per vehicle. And what kind of, my hesitation with doing maybe all of the chargers at once is we could be putting in 6 chargers, we're really using 3 based on our schedule.
Yeah.
So now we're having chargers just sitting there waiting, and in 10 years or 8 years, I'd rather have a newer charger for the newer vehicles. So it almost need to kind of coincide with our schedule a little bit more. And some of these questions would be for the electrical group too, to let us know.
Like how can
How would
you
that-
phase things in?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that may be something where we can look at, let's do 3 chargers, let's get the next 2 years of passenger vehicles done, and then we can kind of evaluate from there too.
So, Derek and Andy, why don't the 3 of us get together and let's put together some data for the commissioners to review before the next meeting? I think that would be great. We can maybe touch on it in November.
Yeah, I think that way, like, I'm not, what to, and also depending on what the electrical folks have to say about capacity.
This could be a great November
Study
study session. See how the audit is no longer on the docket.
Just out of curiosity, you're concerned about the technology on the charging side or the vehicle side?
All of it.
Right, I can imagine like buying the charger, right, installing the charger, and then 3 or 4 years later you buy the truck and it's that's a different plug now.
So,
Like,
and my reference
Like,
point is like, again, you can put in a 210 volt for these hybrid, at your home, right? So I don't understand the difference between why we spend 75,000, or, I want to be able to understand that component. But also, there were a lot of incentives for this direction. I'm not saying we should stop because there are incentives. But I also think it's helpful to look at it from also like are there some finances? So even though it might cost $15,000 extra, what are the cost savings over time that we would So we can put it, so there's a financial piece, there's obviously an environmental piece, which that's really hard to calculate, but I think that would be in, I don't know, maybe we can in dollars, maybe somebody has a time accounting system that they can help us with that. I think that there are people who do that.
Sean does.
Does he? The solar guy? So I mean, I think that would be helpful to think through.
Well, I agree with Andy too, is there's no use of installing all of the chargers if they're just sitting.
Yeah. So based on our capacity and vehicle replacement schedule, yeah.
Also, I mean, we need to keep in mind, priorities about climate initiatives. I mean, I think it may not be a, dollar per dollar. I mean, it's very likely we're going to save money doing this, but, how much are we, willing to spend over the normal expenditures to say, hey, we're going to, make an effort to move in the right direction here. Also, my understanding is those Ford F-150s, they have a lot of other capabilities in terms of charging electric equipment, right? Like blowers, leak blowers and things like that.
If those are options we can add on.
You charge off of the trucks themselves instead of being diesel or gasoline powered. Probably an extra.
So you could be in the field and charge your in-carry charger equipment if it dies.
If we select the option, yeah.
Got it. Wow. Yeah.
And we don't have to specifically call out EV charging in the budget. We could, what we'll have in the upcoming budget line, contingency is just kind of we try to keep 50 to 75,000 each year if it needs to help any other project out. But we also, if you look at our capital budgets in our contingency section, there's a lot of budget items that then get added over the course of the years after the budget's approved. So, it doesn't mean we have to say, we could have a heavier contingency line knowing we're going to do more research as well. So I don't want to try to make it seem like we have to decide, for the budget approval next month either. We'll have funds we can put in contingency knowing that that's a goal we're still working towards as an option. Okay, so that contingency line is $56,000 for this budget. And then we also have $100,000 for Busey Woods Bridge. This is basically just protecting funds. In the occurrence, we have some overages with our bid for that bridge replacement. We are working with ERA to get another cost estimation as we're working through preliminary or design documents. He's hoping to have another estimate prior to our November meeting, so we may be able to potentially reduce that, or we can increase contingency elsewhere in that budget to utilize for other priorities if needed. So, but for now, we're holding $100,000. That's it. Any other questions or comments?
Okay, can I go back to this? I think what would be helpful is to see, this is in my mind, the schedule visually, like the timeline, and what could be replaced, right, and what sort of the options are. So to not make you waste time doing things that aren't helpful, right? And then sort of thinking about what the, also looking at the fuel savings options, benefits. I would love to see what this thing Sean has. If you can't do that by November, that's okay. But I think that's kind of what I'm thinking would be helpful, is to sort of see a timeline. How many vehicles are we really talking about in the next couple of years? And so I think to inform that, do we need to put all, and then based on what your assessment is, how can we make a transition plan?
Yep.
There should be some maintenance.
The schedule, yeah.
too,
Yeah.
on those vehicles.
Was it how many F-150s in 2027? Was it 4, 5?
2. So 2027 had 2 F-150s and then 2 what I call the passenger vehicles, the rec van and a hybrid wagon. So that's 4 vehicles potentially, 27. And then 28 has a Prius, another half-ton, and a custodial van. And then 29 and 30, I didn't see any, and then, 30 has a Transit, which is Urbana. I think that could be an option, right? Yeah. Those Amazon
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty slick.
If we can do it, we can do it.
We should have charging stations at, again, our rec facilities, so health and wellness, Phillips Recreation Center, and Nature Center. So some of the fleet that are like.
Yeah, some of those would go.
Could be a flex vehicle, and so if it's available when staff are locking up the night, they could charge you, but it's not, it's still high capacity.
Do you guys know, counting off the top of your head, how many miles those F-150s get a year?
Then we can bring that to the.
Like to know that.
I'm going to bring this last but not least, action to approve the board policy manual 88 update.
Oh, sorry.
Patiently waiting.
Our trooper.
Time to wake up, Keenan. We got it.
So I believe you have a memo in front of you guys. Switched the numbers around for our OPDMDs and our service animals. They got pushed down a bit because of some of the updates we made, but the current policy manual is outdated, requires several revisions that we've made for OPDMD and service animals. We made these and went over these revisions with Jennifer Skolsky in our policy study group between July and September of 2025. And we just recommend that the board approve the updated policy to ensure compliance with the Department of Justice and to support the safety and inclusion of all Urbana Park District park users.
So we're prepared to go through this line by line if that's helpful to the board, or we could also talk about it in kind of more broad swath in terms of what we're seeking to achieve through these policy updates.
Start on the second.
Yeah, I was to say, we also looked, Cedric and I looked at
That's
this
right.
prior, when we were on the policy committee, so I feel like I'm pretty familiar with what's happening.
Sure.
So,
I will say, Laura and Sarah specifically have gone through this with a very fine-tooth comb. I think they've done a great job of, making the policy appropriate for the public, so.
So I'd say that in a broad swath, that our previous policy was language that was widely used by park districts throughout the state of Illinois for both OPD, MDs, and service animals. As Jennifer Spolsky reviewed it, she thought that it was overly restrictive in some areas and encouraged us to think about it in a way that where we're being less burdensome on people that would either depend upon a service animal or another powered mobility device for visiting our parks and facilities. And so the changes we made were all reflective of being more accommodating towards these uses. And I think that the review's been fantastic. I appreciate Sarah coming up with a few more clarifications. And I think at this point it's ready for adoption if the board is so willing.
and then my other question, where does a user find this information?
It would be on our website.
Okay.
We should have a section where our policy manual is located. I can't exactly tell you.
Okay, but it is on the website. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, it is on the website.
Under parks, I think it's parks rules and regulations is where we have what is this chapter of the board policy manual.
Well, I move that the Urbana Park District Board of Commissioners approve the updated policy manual to ensure compliance with the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division regulations and to support the safety and inclusion of all Urbana Park District users.
Second.
As been moved and seconded, we'll do a roll call vote, starting with Ashley.
Aye.
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 That passes unanimously. Thank you. That will bring us to any new business removed from the consent agenda. Nothing none. That moves us to comments from commissioners.
I just wanted to say congrats on the $10,000 from a donor that walked into the Memphis Nature Center and the $35,000, is it Lumpkin Foundation?
That's right.
Yeah, for the Meadowbrook Creek. I mean, I think that's great. Because Lumpkin's out of Mattoon. Yeah, so that's nearby, and I think that's great, so.
It's their climate initiative, and they're huge sponsors of Grand Prairie Friends. They do a lot of Grand Prairie Friends. Coincidentally, today I got an email from Tree Scrubber, and they're wanting to develop a relationship with us. So,
Really?
yeah.
Well, that
Sounds like our
nice.
kind of group.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Derek, I missed the beginning of that.
So One Food Foundation is a group that supports, that I mentioned, they do a lot of conservation work with Grand Prairie Friends. This particular grant is a climate initiative grant. And then coincidentally today we got an email from Trees Forever, they're looking to develop a relationship with us. So it works nicely that we're be clearing some bases and bringing some new ones back in.